Time once again for another episode of Digging the Details with Jim and Dean. And I'm the Jim side of that equation. I'd like to introduce the Dean side, Dean Brinkerhoff, who is a wonderful artist, writer, very knowledgeable Disney enthusiast, and in fact, a Disney historian. Hey, Dean, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going with you, Jim?
It's going great. I'm so happy to talk with you.
I'm thrilled to be back here in Tulgey with TV for another edition. Jim, of course, is a wonderful author, blogger, YouTuber, and all-knowing muse of everything Disney and beyond, and I'm grateful that I could be here with you. We're very excited to bring some fun topics and insights to you today, and thrilled to be here as always.
Thank you, Figaro. Or are you Frankie? And we're going to talk today about the wonderful news that Disney Plus is adding classic Walt Disney cartoons, in other words, produced by Walt Disney himself, to Disney Plus, their streaming service. There's 4 dates that they're going to be releasing those newly restored cartoons. And as we're recording, we just passed the first date, so the first group is up there. But you know, it's interesting. I was writing an article about the music in the Donald Duck cartoons, specifically like his theme music. And he had 2 major themes. There was the instrumental that they used at first, and then at a certain point, about in 1947, they switched to that song.
Who's never wrong but always right? Who'd never dream of starting a fight? Who gets stuck with all the bad luck? No one but Donald Duck.
And I was trying to see, well, when did they first start using that particular instrumental that they used before that song? And I went on Disney Plus to see how many of Donald's cartoons I could see on there. And you know, there were more than I thought. For instance, Donald's Dog Laundry is on Disney Plus before this big news about them issuing these 27 cartoons or posting them. And I was like, wow, there's actually more classic cartoons on Disney Plus than I thought there were. And it's something that everybody always complains about. Like, there needs to be more Walt Disney content. But I'll bet there's more than most people think, because there certainly was more than I thought. There's a good number of Goofy cartoons already on there. Like I said, Donald's Dog Laundry, who would have expected that necessarily? So I think they've already been doing a better job than I thought of having these classic cartoons.
Yeah, and correct, Jim. I think even so, with a lot of the gripes and the wishes from the fans, there is quite a bit of content up that we may kind of forget about or don't even realize, wow, that one is actually up. I mean, for example, the great Donald Duck cartoon, The New Neighbor, that one was one I'd actually never seen before I had a Disney Plus subscription, so that was a neat treasure to find. I do think that they have plenty more that they can add, but that's the exciting news we have to bring you. There was a great press release put out, and you can find that on D23, and there is a lot of fun content coming to Disney Plus, and it's very exciting for the fans like you and I, Jim, who get excited by and treasure the content of Walt's era. And especially in this year of celebrating Disney 100, we are very, very hungry and anxious for just looking at a lot of the films of the past, and especially the great classics from our favorite characters. And that's something that they mention here in this press release, is that they're going to be debuting this collection of 27 shorts, newly restored, featuring iconic stars such as Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, Donald Duck, Goofy, Pluto, Chip and Dale, and the studio's first star, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. So what more could you ask for, really?
Yeah, it's really incredible.
And of course, this is only the start, we hope. There's a nice variety to them, and I think that's kind of what they're going for. At least that's my speculation, is they want to bring up some notables, but also some rarities. So, for example, they've got the very first short from the collection that just debuted was the Skeleton Dance. which is a wonderful, absolutely fantastic and iconic silly symphony. And it looks fantastic on this new restored format, I must say. I had the chance to watch it the other night, and it looks beautiful. All cleaned up and ready to go for Halloween or any time of the year, really.
Yeah, it sure does look fantastic.
But then, of course, we have some rarities coming up that, rarity could be relative. But they do mention in the press release that Chips Ahoy, starring the wonderful characters Donald Duck and Chip and Dale, which was a CinemaScope cartoon in 1956, is going to be the last one that debuts here in October, right before the big celebration on October 16th. So there's going to be a wide range of shorts to be seen, and that's very exciting to me.
I sure do agree. And it was thrilling to have the Skeleton Dance on Disney Plus, not just the title in and of itself, but looking so beautiful, so beautifully and carefully restored. The same restoration team that is also doing the features, starting with Cinderella, are working on these shorts. And there is an all-star lineup of greats. Dorothy McKim, who is an acclaimed Disney producer of Disney animation, and a wonderful person. I've known Dorothy for a long time, and her husband, Brian. Brian, by the way, is one of Sam McKim's sons. And so Sam McKim is Dorothy's father-in-law. So that's
I never put that together. That is so cool.
Yeah, and everybody in the McKim family, including Dorothy, are fantastic people. So, even aside
sure
from
are.
Yeah, and even aside from their talent, just wonderful people. But at any rate, she is one of the driving forces on getting the right people involved in this restoration project, including Eric Goldberg, who, everybody knows from animating the genie in Aladdin, was co-director of Pocahontas, so many other credits. And most especially, I think, the wonderful Mike Giamo, who is a phenomenal historian, you might say, almost like a visual historian, although believe me, he knows the history of Disney backwards and forwards. His specialty is really color, and he knows exactly what the original colors of these films were, what they're supposed to be, exactly how they're supposed to look as projected, even though they're not being projected, how they're supposed to look to the audience. So an incredible, phenomenal talent to be involved. Anybody who's had the luck to see the Cinderella 4K, which is only available through Disney Movie Club, the restoration is phenomenal, and truly the film is restored to the way it looked as Walt Disney produced it, and as his incredible talents, meaning the artists, the way they wanted it to look. The colors are all perfectly accurate. Shadows are as they should be. It's not too cleaned up because that's not how it looked. In other words, not made too bright. And everything you can possibly say about this restoration is phenomenal. So if you don't have this, consider joining the Disney Movie Club. It's actually not a bad thing to belong to. Because
it really isn't. There's a lot of good titles, and especially like this one that's a very good one for collectors like us who are looking for these restored versions of these wonderful animated titles and more.
Yeah, Disney Movie
even beyond animation.
Disney Movie Club has other exclusives as well. Can you name one or two of the other ones, Dean?
Most recently, I've had the delight to collect Big Red, which is a wonderful live-action film starring Walter Pidgeon. And another one that I've collected recently is a new release on Blu-ray of The Scarecrow of Romney Marsh, which is a cult classic, of course. Many of you in the audience, I'm sure, love that one, as do I.
Scarecrow of Romney Marsh is on Blu-ray, not let alone
on
DVD.
Blu-ray.
Yeah, so
heard that right.
Yeah. The team that's restoring the features one by one per year, and I believe what does the press release say is the next feature?
And in addition to the exciting release of Cinderella, upcoming soon will be Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs on a fully restored in the exact same way. A release in the same fashion by the same team of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which is pretty exciting and timely for this 100-year celebration of the Walt Disney Company.
Absolutely. And to my mind, that brings us back to the skeleton dance. I've been calling on social media posts and so forth the skeleton dance as the second most important animated short produced by Disney. I'm sure you know what the first one would be.
It was Steamboat Willie, of course, which is arguably the most important cartoon of the Walt Disney Company for its historical nature, being the first sound cartoon, synchronized sound cartoon. And that has actually been on Disney Plus since day one. So we can enjoy that from then on and from now, hopefully for a while.
Hopefully. Yes, and because of that, I'm sure some wondered, well, why not the skeleton dance? The reason I think it's the second most important animated short is because it is the first Silly Symphony. And if there hadn't been a first Silly Symphony, there couldn't have been really anything else, including the features, because the Silly Symphonies are what led to all of that. I mean, some people might say, well, wouldn't Three Little Pigs be the second? I think that would be the third, because you can't have the Three Little Pigs, a Silly Symphony, without the first Silly Symphony. So
it's not a bad answer, but you're right. The skeleton dance predates that for sure, and without that, we probably wouldn't have had the Three Little Pigs. Also, from that press release, we had mentioned Dorothy McKim a few minutes ago. She has this great little bit of insight into the work that their team is doing, and I have the utmost respect and give props to them for all that they're doing to restore these incredible pieces of art. And Dorothy says, we are thrilled to be working with Kevin Schaefer and the studio's restoration team in presenting these beautifully restored versions of classic Disney animated shorts. Two of our top artistic talents have lent their expertise and passion to the project to make sure that the films look their very best and are authentic to the creative intentions of the original filmmakers, which is pretty much what you had just said, Jim. But to continue with the quote, we're very excited to be sharing these wonderful shorts with the Disney Plus audience. They have never looked or sounded better. And I think I agree with that. It's quite a wonder to see them. And I'm glad that they're doing this.
Seeing the first 6 cartoons that have been released just the other day on July 7th, they look so fantastic. It's tangible how great they look and sound. Because, of course, they're not neglecting the soundtracks either. So it's great. But one thing that occurred to me to look at the whole list, and the whole list of cartoons to be released is on that press release.
Yeah, sure is.
It's incredible that, including the skeleton dance, they're including black and white films. Because usually that's the first to go. if they're deciding what to do, it's like, okay, get rid of the black and white. People hate it. Nobody wants to see black and white. So it's wonderful that they're giving black and white the attention it deserves. It's not only the skeleton dance, but it's also Building a Building, which is a Mickey Mouse cartoon from 1933. So an early one, but a fun one to watch just in and of itself. But also that was an important period when Walt was really striving to add story, more characterization, more about the personalities, rather than just worrying about it being a series of gags and just kind of tied to a theme. He wanted an actual story, and if you read the story notes for some of these early films, he was really encouraging everyone, the whole animation team, to look at story. So Building a Building is one of those cartoons where they were moving forward with the whole idea of story. And it's not that it's not like it's this epic action film, like say something like Two Gun Mickey, where there's a lot of action.
Right.
It's really very simple, They're building a building, hence the title. Mickey is one of the construction workers, and Minnie comes by to sell her box lunches. And there's this conflict with Peg-Leg Pete, of course. But aside from it, that's the story. But it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it's about their personalities. There's even a little song introduced, which was not that common for that era, about the box lunches, this little jingle that Minnie sings, and it's so sweet. There's a lot going on in that short running time. And Walt was thinking, well, we can't just have Mickey doing fun things and doing a little dance. Something has to happen. And their personalities have to come through. And it's an important film for those wondering why they might have chosen that one. I think it's the perfect choice.
I agree. I like that one a lot. But if you compare it to some of the previous works, even Steamboat Willie, for example, Steamboat Willie does have a story, but it is very gag-based and musical-based to, showcase the synchronized sound.
Right.
But you're right, Building a Building has that beginning, middle, and end, and it's a very charming, simple story with lots of personality. So, I mean, you basically summed it up, but I agree that it's very, very on the nose for what Walt was trying to strive for, and it's a good showcase for Disney Plus.
And in glorious black and white. And there's, and there's more black and white to come in the future releases as well. Of the cartoons that were released on July 7th and the ones to come on August 11th, are there any favorites that you have, or any that stuck out as you as unusual choices, or exactly what you would have chosen, or what is your reaction to any of them?
I'd say my reaction to the first batch is, of course, the obvious. The skeleton dance is amazing. I also really was kind of pleased to see Aquamania was there. I find that one to be one of the oddest Goofy cartoons ever made. But it's neat that it's one that Wolfgang Reitherman directed. And you can see his touch, and it's got that very 60s feeling. It's from 1961, and right around the time of 101 Dalmatians and that early 60s feel, where you can sort of see a lot more of the gritty line work on the animation, but it's still got the same. I believe he goes by Mr. X in that one instead of Goofy or Mr. Geef, but he and his son Junior, voiced by Kevin Corcoran of Disney fame, Mr. Moochie, are out on a boating trip, and then Goofy ends up on a jet ski, and he's got a octopus or a squid on top of his face. I'm not sure which that would be, but I just call him octopus. And on this crazy chase through the waters, and eventually onto a roller coaster, and it feels like it's never going to end, but then there's a final. I'm going on way too long with the description, but it's very fun, just the way it builds upon the mad chaos, and that's pretty typical for a Goofy short, but that one really takes the cake in some ways for the heights of the chaos and the madcap adventure. That's one that I was pretty excited to see, and especially restored too.
Yeah, that's one I was quite surprised. That particular cartoon has always been a little amazing to me because it's so late in the production of shorts. They had pretty much given up on producing shorts except like featurettes.
Yeah.
And for them to suddenly do a Goofy cartoon in the classic style, I just wondered what that was all about. But as you say, I think it's a great one, and it makes this initial drop of titles very intriguing because we go all the way from 1929 to 1961. That's incredible.
Quite a jump. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a mixed bag, but in a good way because it's unexpected.
The other neat additions in this first batch it's neat to see Figaro's I think, two and only cartoons, right? I don't know if there were any more, but I know there was at least the two that are shown here.
Yeah, there's one or two more. There's a few.
Right. But it's neat to see them, and Minnie doesn't always get the screen time that she probably deserves either. So it's cool that they thought to give her a little of the limelight too, since they usually star together. Figaro,
Yes.
of course, being from Pinocchio and getting more of a limelight role here with Minnie Mouse in her house. So
Yeah,
it's pretty neat.
I agree. I would not have expected Figaro to be among the first stars showcased, but that's not a bad thing. I think it's unexpected, and that's good. They are good cartoons, and it's fun to see them. And it's always such fun to see Minnie with Figaro, because basically it's this giant mouse that owns a cat. So hey, why not?
Right. Figure that one out. I guess it's no different from a mouse owning a dog, Mickey and Pluto.
So in the second grouping, that's premiering on August 11th, we have both Mickey Steamroller and Donald's Nephews. Again, Mickey Steamroller is a black and white cartoon, and among other things, and I think you have some things to say about that one as well, that's the only official Mickey Mouse short that has Mickey's nephews, Morty and Ferdy, in it. And then, so it's kind of fun that there's Mickey's nephews and then also Donald's nephews in the later color cartoon, which introduced on screen Huey, Dewey, and Louie. So these are great, great choices and really fun.
Yeah, I think that's a neat connection. I am not as familiar with Mickey Steamroller, but I am very familiar with Donald's nephews. And they are quite a madcap bunch. They zoom right in at the very beginning on bikes or trikes, whichever it is.
Yeah, trikes.
And they really throw Donald for a loop. Sometimes they blend together, and I really need to distinguish them better, but I believe this is the one where they're sitting down around the dinner table and they're praying, and every time Donald lifts his eye, there's a hand reaching for the food, and he's trying to get them all to be reverent for this prayer, and he's just losing his absolute last iota of sanity. It's an excellent short and definitely needs to be seen if you haven't. It's also got Goofy and Wilbur in the second set, and this is the first official Goofy cartoon. So, what a neat milestone, landmark short to have along with this other grouping. But Donald's nephews aren't the only ones who are driving Donald crazy, especially around the dinner table, because also in this second release will be Donald's cousin Gus, who is one of my favorite of the duck characters in the duck family of Donald's. Gus also arrives almost unannounced and unexpectedly to completely wipe out Donald's house and home and fridge, because his personality and shtick is he eats everything in sight. So that is a very interesting set of circumstances for our hero, and it makes for some great gags and a fun little story. And I think it's an excellent choice to tie right along with Donald's nephews.
Yes. Oh, I agree with you. I hadn't even thought about that. They are kind of, speaking of cousins, they are kind of cousins as in terms of being cartoons.
Right, that's true.
But already the supporting cast was growing, and at that early point, the late 30s, for Donald, who was a star, a superstar, so he needed supporting characters. And when I hear about Cousin Gus, being the comic book fan I am, he's a well-loved figure for comic book enthusiasts, because he became a great supporting character in the Donald Duck comic books, especially the ones by Carl Barks, because Gus became Grandma Duck's farmhand, and he was incredibly lazy. So there's some really fun interaction with him and Grandma and Gyro Gearloose and all the other characters as well. And I've always just loved him. It's fun to see Gus in his animated debut.
Also in this August 11th grouping is Goofy and Wilbur, which was Goofy's first solo standalone short. He had appeared in previous cartoons with Mickey and Donald as Dippy Dog and as Goofy, as we know him today. But Goofy and Wilbur showed a little solo adventure where he's out fishing and he's got this little grasshopper friend, Wilbur. And it's actually been, I think, a couple of years since I've watched that one, but it's a great one I always think of in my mind as far as an iconic Goofy short. So it'll be fun to revisit that one when it comes out next month.
Yeah, I know what you'll be watching on August 11th.
You know it.
It's great, and I like it because they had not yet devised the formula of the how-to cartoons. So this is very
true. That was before that.
Very different from those films which were yet to come. Goofy shows different emotions in this. He becomes quite upset over thinking that poor Wilbur is gone and cries. And we just see different, as well as his goofy antics and the way he has of running and moving, some emotions we've not yet seen from him in previous cartoons. And it's so beautifully produced. And I think that's another thing. A number of these cartoons, including not only Goofy and Wilbur, but Donald's Nephews and Donald's Cousin Gus, are from the Golden Age. So anything from the late 30s into the early 40s, these cartoons look spectacular. And they just had the top talent, and everybody was at the top of the game. And they were spending a lot of money on these short cartoons, and it really shows. They are so beautifully done. So it's a winner, and an unusual winner, I think.
And on top of now this new restoration, it's going to look just like it did back then, or how it should have looked back then.
Yes, exactly. I'm sure that's such a good point, Dean, because I think that's one of the selling points on this whole thing, on how great this whole thing is that even if we've seen some of these cartoons many, many times, we've never seen them like this. They are so beautifully restored.
We're very big fans of the cartoons, and I doubt any of these are going to be on this drop. But yeah, even the DVDs that we love, they don't look as good as what they're going to be.
And I think at some point they'll be, well, hopefully, right? They'll be moving on to Disney rarities, some of the ones that are not already on there. Where is Pigs is Pigs? We demand to know.
Right.
Where is Ben and Me? In color, not just as part of the Liberty Story. Well, yes, again, the Liberty Story's on there, but Johnny Tremaine is not. They show like half of Johnny Tremaine in the Liberty Story. Makes no sense, but at any rate.
And the full Ben and Me in black and white, which we love black and white, but there is a color version too.
We love black and white when it's supposed to be black and white.
Yes.
If it's
that's the distinction to make.
It's so strange.
And Jim, you mentioned that Goofy went on to star in a series of wonderful how-to shorts, how to dance, how to fish, on and on. And we've seen many of these, and they're hilarious. How to Ski is one of my favorites, or The Art of Skiing is, I think, what it's called.
And some of those how-to cartoons are already on Disney Plus.
Yeah, many of them are, actually.
More than I thought.
And one of those that is actually included in this first wave that's already ready to go, you can watch it right now, is Goofy Gymnastics, where he shows off how to be a gymnast, and we see all his madcap adventures as he goes about learning how to do that. Yes, we will be getting some original Goofy material in the next wave, but where his prestige really shined through was in those how-to shorts, and we're going to get an additional one in this first wave that has just come out. So I think that's really cool that in addition to the ones that were already there, we've got another one.
I have to say that of all these cartoons that are of the first two waves, the one I was least excited about, shall we say, is The Flying Jalopy. It's beautifully produced and beautifully animated and all that, as it would be from that era, 1943. But to me, it strikes me as a very strange cartoon. I think they were just trying to do something different. The villain, that Buzzard character, is so... Donald frequently confronts heavies, literally, in the case of Pig Leg Pete. But this character is so murderous.
And his name is Ben Buzzard, and you're right. He is a bit of a brash, murderous, crazy character, and a bit of a... I think he's a formidable foe for Donald, but yeah, he's different, especially for a Disney character of this type.
Yeah, and I think that's why he's a one-off, because he's so intent on killing Donald. You couldn't, I don't know. So it's a little unusual, and I think they were just trying to go for something different and for something very frantic, for Donald to continually trying to get away from him and get to safety, instead of, in this airplane that's just falling apart. It's because Ben Buzzard has sold him this unsafe airplane, right? That is just falling apart. So at any rate, I'm looking forward to watching it. I'm looking forward to watching The Flying Jalopy when it premieres on Disney Plus on August 11th, because I want to give it another try. I haven't seen it in years. In decades. So maybe I'll feel differently about it this time. But I'm not saying it's a bad cartoon. It's just what I guess I would consider a misfire, or it's so different that it's a misfire.
Yeah.
So I'll look forward to giving that another try, and maybe I'll tell you about it in our next episode.
I, for one, am glad Ben Buzzard didn't really catch on. But I agree, Jim. It'll be fun to revisit it and see what a new, fresh perspective could bring.
Yep. And again, I would be curious as to why that particular title was chosen. But that's what makes it really fun. Some of them were almost obvious choices, like they're so strong, like The Skeleton Dance or Donald's Nephews. Those are both classics and historic classics. But why Aquamania? Why The Flying Jalopy? You could also say why not, and that's true, because any Disney cartoon is going to be a great choice, but they're so different as a choice with the others. And that's what I love about these choices. They're not just obvious, they're not just the same, they're not just the same old cartoons. There's some of them are rarities in the sense of being rare. They star Disney characters, so they're not in that other category we were talking about, but it's just fun to see what they've chosen and to think about why, to speculate.
Almost like a lesser known choice that you probably wouldn't have gone with first.
Right.
In addition to the obvious ones.
Yes, and I love it. I love looking at this list.
I do too.
And it's just, right, Dean? It's just kind of fun to think about it and wonder why.
Yeah, I welcome it all. And I'm glad that they are doing this to, I don't know if it's a way to appease the fans or whatnot, because it's sure working. I am grateful for it. But I do think it's a good move on Disney Plus to showcase these shorts that really created what Disney is today, because without these shorts, we wouldn't have anything else.
Such a good point. And the established stars, it's always great to see them in these, I would almost want to say little scene cartoons, because it's the short animated cartoons that always seem to get shuffled off to the side a little bit. So it's wonderful to have them available and hopefully seen by new audiences. It's the stars, starting with Mickey Mouse, that the whole studio is built on. So to have these great cartoon stars who continue to have their audience and continue to amaze new audiences, it's just great.
I would like to see more of them.
Me too. It's great to look ahead at these other titles that will be premiering on Disney Plus soon.
This collection of 27 Disney classic shorts has started being added to a new collection category on Disney Plus called the Disney 100 Collection. The first 6 are available now, and they'll start rolling out periodically from month to month until the celebration happens on October 16th. I'm pretty excited to see them all gathered together this way, and it's neat to see, like you talked about before, Jim, how it's surprising how many shorts already are on there, and they're all gathered in this collection now. I'm finding shorts that I know I've seen before, but I wasn't sure if they were entirely on the service, and so it's neat to see, hey, these are all neatly restored and beautiful and seen like never before. So it'll be fun to dig through and familiarize myself again with some of these shorts that are either lesser known or ones that I haven't seen as often. So I'm very excited about that.
It's wonderful to see them all together and hopefully having them as one of the collections. And for those who might not know what that means, there are certain collections that you can go to on Disney Plus. For example, an Indiana Jones collection, where it has not only the features, but also Young Indiana Jones, the episodes of that TV series are on there. And I think this will help draw attention to the shorts that have already been on there, as well as the ones they're adding now, just as you said. So I too want to just go through it and look at ones that I haven't seen in a long time or favorites that I just continue to enjoy.
Definitely.
So it's fun to be able to celebrate something on Disney Plus. That's where things should be happening right now, to celebrate Disney 100. So how fun, and it's really fun to talk to you about it, you who are so knowledgeable and also a great celebrator, if that's a word, of the classic cartoons. The ones they're adding are all produced by Walt Disney. There's black and white ones. There's ones that you don't see very often, like the Figaro cartoons.
In glorious Technicolor or whatever it happens to be.
Glorious Technicolor or glorious black and white. Either way, we want to see them as they were produced, and here they are. So looking forward to more.
And it's great talking to you as well, Jim, of course, on this topic, as well as all the other topics we discuss. We have many other videos in the past and in the works. So thank you for all your support, and we appreciate you sticking with us and watching what we have to talk about.
That's right, viewers and listeners, since this is a podcast now as well, a YouTube podcast. But digging the details, you just never know what we're going to dig up next. And we do have some really fascinating topics, I think, lined up. In the meantime, he's Dean.
And he's Jim.
And we'll see you next time on Digging the Details.